The Pacific horizon was blood red when the first whispers of Luna Nozawa's fate began to circulate through Los Angeles. It had been 2 weeks since her escape, 2 weeks since the night of fog, panic, and gunfire that left the world of the bold and the beautiful in a state of breathless suspense. Yet, like all great tragedies that cling to the hearts of the guilty, her story refused to fade. For Luna, every path now seemed to lead toward one of 4 ends: imprisonment, death, disappearance, or redemption, and every choice she had made since the moment she slipped out of that prison laundry cart was dragging her closer to a reckoning she could neither control nor escape. The world she had fled was built on lies. Behind every luxurious beach house, behind every glittering cocktail glass at Forrester Creations, there was a history of betrayal dressed in silk and gold. Luna had once been a part of that world, an artist, a dreamer, and for a time, the woman Will Spencer swore he would never stop loving. But that was before obsession became her only compass, before jealousy and fear carved deep lines into her soul. Now, she was a fugitive, a mother-to-be, and a ghost haunting the edges of Malibu's cliffs. The authorities were certain she wouldn't survive long out there, but Luna was not as fragile as they imagined. She had inherited her grandmother Sheila Carter's blood, the blood of a survivor, of a woman who always crawled out from beneath the ashes of her own destruction. Still, the city had not forgotten her crimes. Her face appeared on every news broadcast, her story spun into cautionary headlines: pregnant convict on the run. To the public, she was a dangerous woman. To Will, she was the past he was trying to bury. And to her mother, Poppy Nozawa, she was a broken reflection of everything she had failed to protect. Poppy and her sister Lee Finnegan joined the search parties combing the Malibu coast under the glow of flashlights. Each night, they wandered the mist, calling Luna's name, but the ocean remained their only answer, endless, cold, and indifferent. Inside the Spencer Beach house, the tension simmered like a secret about to detonate. Bill Spencer's reunion with Katie Logan had been the talk of the tabloids, 2 former lovers rekindling old flames in the wake of danger. But beneath their tenderness lay unease. Bill knew what obsession could do to a person. He had seen it in himself once, long before Luna ever entered their orbit. When news came that Luna might still be alive, the old darkness stirred in him again, the protective rage of a father, the desperate instinct to destroy anything that threatened his son. Katie tried to soothe him, insisting that Luna was merely lost, not malicious, but deep down she knew that kind of innocence no longer existed in Luna. Meanwhile, Will and Electra Forrester lived suspended between fear and denial. They wanted to believe the nightmare was over, that Luna's arrest had sealed their future together. Yet the more they tried to move on, the more the universe refused to let them. At night, Will dreamed of her voice, the way she used to whisper his name like a vow. He told himself it was guilt, not prophecy, but when he stepped outside and saw her initials carved faintly into the deck railing, his heart froze. She had been there. Recently. Across town, Brad Bell, the invisible puppeteer of every fate in this twisted city of desire, was crafting the next move. As always, no one in Los Angeles stayed locked away forever. Sheila Carter had escaped worse. Deacon Sharp had redeemed himself after gunfire and scandal. Even Liam Spencer had survived his self-inflicted chaos. So why should Luna's fall be final? The first theory among the Forrester and Spencer circles was that she would be caught. The Malibu police had closed in after spotting footprints near the cliffs. Deputy Chief Baker, a man whose patience for soap opera criminals had long run dry, led the operation himself. He instructed Will to remain indoors while the search widened across the coastline. Sheila and Deacon, drawn to the spectacle like moths to fire, arrived with Lee and Poppy in tow. For one surreal night, enemies and family stood together under the same fog-choked sky, all bound by a single name, Luna. Lee shouted into the darkness, begging her niece to surrender. "Do the right thing this time," she cried, her voice breaking with exhaustion. But Luna, hearing her from the shadows, only laughed bitterly. The right thing had never saved her before. The only truth she knew was survival. So when the flashlight beams swept dangerously close, she ran again, barefoot, breathless, consumed by the wild instinct that the world wanted her erased. Hours later, a scream echoed from the cliffs. When the rescuers arrived, all they found was Luna's torn prison uniform tangled on the rocks below. Blood stained the fabric, but there was no body. The Pacific had claimed her. Or so it seemed. The next morning, Los Angeles awoke to headlines declaring Luna Nozawa presumed dead. Will stared at the screen in disbelief while Elektra whispered a prayer. Bill simply exhaled, relief and guilt mixing like smoke in his lungs. Katie, however, was not convinced. The sea doesn't keep secrets, she murmured. But in the world of the bold and the beautiful, it often did. As days turned into weeks, the myth of Luna began to twist. Some claimed she had drowned, others insisted she had been shot. Then came the third theory, the one that whispered through Forrester Creations like a ghost story. Luna wasn't dead. She had made it look that way. Somewhere between the panic and the blood, she had shed her old skin. A fisherman swore he saw a woman crawling out of the surf miles away, clutching something to her chest. Others said they found scraps of medical gauze near a coastal safe house. It was Lee who first began to suspect the truth. The blood on Luna's uniform didn't match her DNA. It was animal blood, staged, deliberate. The realization struck her like lightning. Luna hadn't fallen. She had disappeared. And if she had survived, it meant she was still out there, carrying Will's unborn child. The possibility ignited new fear. Elektra grew paranoid, jumping at shadows, locking every door twice. Will became restless, spending long nights staring at the sea as if waiting for it to return what it had taken. Even Poppy, once hardened by years of chaos, found herself haunted by guilt and the ghost of a daughter she might never see again. Months passed. Winter came and went. Then, in early spring, a letter arrived at Spencer Publications addressed to Will in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. There was no return address, only a single line inside. You can't bury what the ocean keeps. Bill intercepted it before Will could read it and burned it in his office fireplace, but the damage was done. The idea of Luna's survival took root, impossible to uproot. Each night, Will dreamed more vividly. Luna's face illuminated by lightning, her hand reaching through the waves, her voice whispering forgiveness and blame all at once. Then came the whispers of her redemption. Jack Finnegan, Luna's estranged grandfather and one of Los Angeles's most respected defense attorneys, returned to town unexpectedly. Rumor had it that he was investigating her case, arguing to the courts that Luna had been a victim of circumstance, not evil. He pointed out that the shooting involving Liam Spencer had been accidental, the result of a struggle. He claimed Sheila herself had confirmed it, declaring that Luna had not meant harm. Jack spoke publicly about rehabilitation, about mental health, about generational trauma. Some called it manipulation. Others called it mercy. But his presence reignited the debate. Was Luna a monster, or simply another broken piece of the Forrester Spencer machine? As the legal battle played out in the background, strange things began happening at the Forrester estate. Packages arrived with no sender. A music box played an old lullaby only Luna would know. Steffi found sea glass shaped like a heart on her doorstep. At first, they dismissed it as coincidence. Then, one night, Finn woke to find footprints in the sand beneath their balcony, small, bare, leading straight into the ocean and vanishing. By late May, the storm that had begun with Luna's escape reached its crescendo. Forrester Creations prepared for its annual fashion gala, the event that defined reputations and buried scandals. Will and Elektra, newly engaged, arrived hand in hand, their smiles polished for the cameras. Katie and Bill stood nearby, their renewed romance glowing under the chandeliers. Even Sheila and Deacon were present, dressed like civilized citizens instead of fugitives. But amid the champagne and flashing lights, a cold gust swept through the room, extinguishing a row of candles. The doors opened. Every head turned. Luna Nozawa stood at the threshold, alive. Her hair was shorter, her eyes sharper, her posture poised with eerie calm. She wore a gown the color of storm clouds, and in her arms, wrapped in white silk, was a sleeping infant. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lee nearly fainted. Poppy whispered her daughter's name like a prayer. Luna stepped forward slowly, her gaze locked on Will. "I told you," she said softly, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotion beneath it. "You can't bury what the ocean keeps." The room erupted into chaos. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, but Luna only smiled, the faint, haunting smile of someone who had already won. She didn't beg for forgiveness, didn't offer explanations. Instead, she handed the child to a stunned Katie Logan. "He's yours to protect now," Luna whispered, then turned and walked back into the night as if swallowed by the storm itself. In the days that followed, the world tried to make sense of what had happened. Some believed Luna had returned for revenge. Others insisted it was redemption. Jack Finnegan fought to clear her name, citing trauma and survival as her defense. Sheila Carter, ever the chaos bringer, praised her granddaughter for having the spine to live like a Carter. Deacon claimed she had stayed with him for months, recovering in secret. And through it all, Will could only stare at the child, his child, and wonder if Luna had been a villain, a victim, or something far more complex, a mirror of his own sins. By the end of November, her story had evolved into legend. Some said she had left Los Angeles entirely, living under a new name somewhere beyond the reach of those who had destroyed her life. Others claimed they saw her watching from afar, a ghost on the cliffs, always near the sea. But those who truly knew her understood one thing: Luna Nozawa was never the kind of woman who stayed gone. Whether by law, love, or vengeance, she would return again, as all bold and the beautiful souls eventually did, drawn back to the same tangled web of passion and punishment that had made her both sinner and saint. For in this city of mirrors and masks, every fall is only a pause before the resurrection. And somewhere beyond the waves of Malibu, Luna watched, waiting, her story far from over. The air was electric with panic. Somewhere beyond the cold steel bars and echoing hallways of the Los Angeles County Correctional Center, a voice screamed, "Code Red." Lockdown. Sirens blared, boots pounded against concrete, and radios crackled with chaos. But Luna Nozawa was already gone. Her empty bed, still warm beneath a pile of cleverly arranged pillows, was the only trace she left behind. The guards burst into her cell, shouting, searching, overturning everything in sight, but the girl who had once been labeled the most dangerous obsession in the Spencer family saga had vanished like smoke through a keyhole. The faint scent of detergent lingered in the air. Somewhere, a laundry cart rolled silently down the service corridor toward the loading dock, and beneath its mountain of sheets and uniforms, a pair of trembling hands clutched at freedom. Luna had been planning this for weeks. Her obsession with Will Spencer, her love, her curse, had become both her anchor and her undoing. Locked away, stripped of dignity and surrounded by the constant hum of surveillance, she had found a lifeline in the most unlikely place: social media. A sympathetic guard, young and careless, had been flattered by her fragile smile and desperate stories. In exchange for small favors, he let her glimpse the outside world through his phone. It was there she saw it, an image that shattered her remaining sanity. Will, on the beach, his arm draped around Electra Forrester, laughing as though the past had never happened. The sight of it made her chest tighten and her pulse roar in her ears. That photo became her breaking point, the spark that turned despair into action. Every night after that, Luna watched the rhythm of the guards, the way the laundry carts came and went, the way the shifts changed. Her mind, sharp even under the haze of medication, began weaving a plan. She stole small pieces of fabric from the laundry room, stuffed her sheets to mimic her sleeping form, and waited for her moment. When the morning whistle sounded and the carts rattled past her cell, she slipped inside one, her heart pounding in sync with the wheels beneath her. The scent of bleach burned her nose, but she didn't dare breathe too loudly. She imagined the guard's shocked face when he discovered her empty cell, the chaos she would leave behind. But most of all, she imagined Will's reaction, his voice when he learned she was free. Across town, life continued in deceptive calm. At the Spencer mansion, Bill and Katie had found themselves drawn together again after years of estrangement. Their reunion had the strange rhythm of something both familiar and doomed. Bill still carried the swagger of the man who believed he could fix everything with money and charm, while Katie, always the moral compass, hoped, perhaps foolishly, that he could change. Their conversation drifted from business to family, from old wounds to new hopes, until Bill's phone rang and shattered the illusion. The news hit him like a punch. Luna Nozawa had escaped. Katie's face went pale. "She's out." Bill nodded grimly. "She's out, and she's coming for Will." Somewhere else, on the sunlit stretch of the Malibu coast, Will and Electra hosted a barbecue that was supposed to symbolize new beginnings. The air was filled with laughter, the scent of grilled food, and the hum of casual conversation. Electra tried to ignore the uneasy glances Will cast toward the ocean. He had always loved that view, but now it made him nervous. There was something about the sound of waves that reminded him of Luna, of that night, of the way she screamed his name before the sirens drowned her voice. He told himself she was gone for good, that prison walls would hold her forever, but a small part of him never believed it. When the call came through, Katie's voice shaking, Bill shouting in the background, his blood ran cold. "Luna's gone," Katie said. "You need to get out of the house now." Will's world narrowed to a single thought. She was coming back. He turned to Electra, who saw the fear in his eyes and didn't ask questions. They hurried to pack, but before they could leave, the sound of sirens filled the air again, this time much closer. Meanwhile, chaos erupted at the prison. Guards scoured the premises, helicopters thundered overhead, and Sheriff Baker himself arrived to oversee the operation. When reporters began to gather at the gates, he gave a curt statement. "Luna Nozawa is dangerous. We believe she has outside help. Our priority is to bring her in safely, but make no mistake, she's the target." The implication hung heavy in the air. They weren't looking to capture her anymore. They were preparing for confrontation. As night fell, Luna's escape route led her through a labyrinth of service roads and coastal trails. Her hands were raw, her feet blistered, but her eyes gleamed with the fever of purpose. Every step brought her closer to the place that haunted her dreams, the Spencer Beach house. The fog rolled in thick and low, swallowing the coastline. She could see the distant glow of lights in the windows, the silhouettes moving inside. Will was there. She was sure of it. Her breath came out in shuddering bursts as she climbed the dunes, clutching the small blade she had stolen from the prison kitchen. At the same time, Lee Finnegan had joined the growing search party along the beach. She had been one of Luna's few advocates once, the one who believed rehabilitation was possible. Now, guilt gnawed at her heart as she ran through the sand, calling Luna's name. The fog made everything disorienting. She could barely see 10 feet ahead, but she kept shouting, pleading. "Luna, please. Stop this before it's too late." Her voice was swallowed by the roar of the surf. Further inland, Katie, Bill, and Ivy raced to the house. Bill's car headlights sliced through the mist as he cursed under his breath. "We should have seen this coming," he muttered. "I told Will not to post those damn photos." Katie's hands trembled as she checked her phone for updates. Her mind flickered between fear and fury. "She's obsessed," she whispered. "And obsession always ends in blood." Back at the house, Will moved from window to window, locking doors, closing blinds, his heart pounding like a trapped animal's. Electra tried to comfort him, but her voice was drowned out by the growing panic outside. Flashing lights, shouting officers, Lee's desperate cries echoing in the distance. Then, through the fog, a shadow moved near the edge of the property. "Luna." She stood still for a moment, her figure half hidden by the mist, her hair plastered to her face, her clothes torn from the escape. The sight of her was almost supernatural, beautiful and terrifying all at once. Will froze. He wanted to believe it was a hallucination, that his mind had conjured her from guilt, but when she called his name, the sound cut through the night like a blade. He stepped back, his voice shaking. "Luna, don't." But she was already running toward the house. The police shouted for her to stop. Flashlights darted wildly, voices overlapping, and in the chaos, Luna slipped past them, sprinting toward the cliffs that framed the edge of the property. The ocean below was a dark, restless void. She could hear Lee's voice behind her, pleading one last time. "Luna, please. This isn't the way." Luna turned back, her face illuminated by the flashing lights. "They took everything from me," she shouted. "I have nothing left to lose." Her foot slipped on the wet grass. A single scream pierced the air, then silence. When the searchlights swept across the cliff, there was nothing there, just the endless churn of black water far below. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Lee fell to her knees, sobbing. Bill stood frozen, his arm around Katie, his eyes hollow. Electra buried her face in Will's chest, trembling. The ocean roared louder, as if mocking them all. It seemed certain that Luna Nozawa was gone. But the bold and the beautiful had never been kind to certainty. Days turned into weeks. The search recovered nothing, no body, no clothing, not even a trace of blood. Officially, the case was closed. Unofficially, whispers began to spread. A fisherman claimed he'd seen a woman pulled from the waves miles down the coast. A nurse at a seaside clinic reported treating a patient who vanished before dawn. Will dismissed it all as rumor, but every night he dreamed of the same thing. Luna standing in the fog, dripping with seawater, whispering his name. Meanwhile, life went on in the strangest of ways. Bill and Katie tried to recapture the piece they'd found before the escape, but guilt hung between them like smoke. Electra threw herself into work at Forrester Creations, yet her designs grew darker, haunted by images of water and shadows. Even Ivy, normally composed, confessed that she sometimes felt a chill when passing the beach. "It's like she's still out there," she whispered one afternoon. "Watching." Then, on Thanksgiving morning, the piece finally shattered. Steffi and Finn hosted their family dinner, laughter echoing through their home as Taylor and Kelly prepared the table. Outside, the sunlight glinted off the ocean. It should have been perfect until a knock came at the door. Finn opened it, expecting a neighbor or a courier. Instead, he froze. There stood a woman, her hair damp, her eyes calm and unblinking. She smiled faintly, the kind of